Welcome to the deep dive. Today, well, we're tackling a pretty big question. What's actually happening with the UK automotive industry right now? Where does it stand in the global innovation picture?
And to get a handle on that, we're going deep into a specific blog post. It's the third part of a series, actually.
That's right. It's called What Could Help UK Automotive Industry to Get Back on Track, and it's by Dovydas Mockevicius. That's Dovydas.
Yeah, and our aim here really is to pull out the core insights from what Dovydas has written. We want you, the listener, to get a really clear picture.
A picture of the challenges, definitely, because they are significant.
But also the opportunities. It's not all doom and gloom according to his analysis.
Yeah.
It's about understanding both sides.
Absolutely. And look, before we jump into the specifics of the blog, it's probably worth sketching out who Dovydas Mockevicius is, just so you know where this perspective is coming from.
Good idea. It adds context.
So he's currently the CEO and enterprise architect at a company called IS Cloud. He also founded SFC&C.
Which is the UK Salesforce consultants and contractors community.
Right. And importantly, he's deep in the tech side of things, a Salesforce certified technical architect candidate. He's got, 9 years working directly with Salesforce?
Yeah, 9 years across all sorts of businesses, consultancies, end users, partners, small companies, right up to huge global enterprises in over 26 countries.
But the really key bit for today's topic, I think, is his direct automotive experience.
Definitely. He was a Salesforce architect at Accenture, and maybe even more relevantly, he was the head of Salesforce at Volta Trucks.
Right. And at Volta, he was basically in charge of setting up their Salesforce Automotive Cloud program from scratch, a greenfield project.
So he's been right at the coalface of implementing these modern cloud-based systems within an actual automotive company. He understands the tech challenges.
Exactly. And it's not just talk. He's got the certifications to back it up, too. Things like identity and access management, advanced admin, CPQ.
CPQ, that's configure price, quote, important in manufacturing and sales.
Platform developer, SECI certified Agilist. The list goes on. Plus, he's picked up awards like Top 5 in UK and Sales Excellence.
So the point is, he brings a really informed, practical viewpoint to this discussion about the UK auto industry's future. He knows the tech, he knows the industry pressures.
Okay, so let's dive into the blog post itself. The first thing that really grabs you is this statistic about UK car production.
It's quite stark, isn't it? He lays out how the UK's slice of the global vehicle production pie just plummeted.
Yeah, from 10% historically?
Down to an estimated, get this, 0.9% in 2025, less than 1%.
Wow. That's a dramatic fall. It really makes you stop and think, what's been going on?
It really does. And he immediately puts that figure next to the explosion in electric vehicles globally.
Right. He contrasts it with the success stories, Tesla, obviously, but also the big Chinese players like BYD and XPeng who've come on so strong.
And seeing those side by side really highlights the UK's position, doesn't it? It raises that question. Why hasn't the UK managed to grab a bigger piece of this huge EV transition?
Were we too slow off the mark? Too focused on older tech, maybe?
Could be. Or maybe the investment climate wasn't right, the infrastructure. It's likely a mix of things.
Okay. Moving on from production numbers, he then gets into productivity, another challenging area, it seems.
A very challenging area. He highlights this persistent productivity gap. The estimate he uses is that UK productivity has been trailing the US by 40 to 50%.
Since 2008. Oh.
Yeah, consistently since 2008. That's a long-term issue, and it makes it really hard for UK manufacturers to compete on cost and efficiency.
And he links this directly to the kind of technology being used, doesn't he?
He does. He argues that the leading global OEMs, the big car makers, are really pushing ahead by adopting these modern platforms. He calls them cloud-native, modular, and AI first.
Whereas the suggestion is that, much of the UK industry is perhaps still working with older legacy systems.
That seems to be the implication. And just to clarify for listeners, cloud-native essentially means systems designed for the internet age, flexible, scalable.
Okay.
Modular means you can sort of plug and play different parts of the manufacturing process, making it easier to adapt.
Right, more adaptable.
And AI first is about building artificial intelligence in from the ground up to optimize everything, design, supply chain, the actual production line.
So these leading companies are using tech to get leaner, faster, smarter, while the UK might be lagging in that adoption curve.
That seems to be the core of his argument on productivity. It's about the underlying tech infrastructure.
Okay. Then there's another major hurdle he flags up, the cost of electricity. This affects everything.
Oh, massively. And the figures he quotes are pretty eye-watering. He states the UK has some of the most expensive electricity, both industrial and residential, in the entire G7 group.
How much more expensive are we talking?
Well, in some comparisons, he says up to 570% higher than other major economies.
570%. That's
Yeah,
unbelievable.
it is. Let's look at the specific numbers he gives. UK industrial cost is around 29.6 pence per kilowatt hour.
Which is about 37 US cents.
Right. And residential is even a bit higher, around 31.3 pence or 39 US cents.
Okay, and compare that to.
Well, the US industrial rate he cites is just 6.49 cents per kilowatt hour. And Canada's residential rate is around 12 US cents.
So, I mean, the difference is huge. That must put UK manufacturers at a serious disadvantage, especially energy-hungry ones like car plant.
Absolutely. It directly hits their operating costs, making it harder to compete purely on price. And as we shift more towards EVs, electricity becomes even more central, both for making the cars and, of course, for charging them.
Which brings us neatly to the next point in the blog post, EV infrastructure, another area where the UK seems to be playing catch-up.
Yeah, this is critical for drivers, isn't it? Dovydas points out a lag in the sheer number of chargers available compared to leading countries.
And specifically, a lack of the really fast ones, the superchargers.
Exactly. Availability is one thing, but speed is crucial for convenience, especially on longer trips. He also mentions something specific, the lack of public C-rate chargers in the UK.
C-rate, what are those exactly?
These are the next generation of ultra-fast chargers. We're talking 800 to 1300 kilowatts. Powerful enough to add significant range in just a few minutes.
Okay, so not having those widely available is a drawback for making EVs truly convenient for everyone.
It could definitely be a bottleneck, yeah. And it's not just the type of charger, it's where they are.
The distribution issue.
Right. He notes that something like 72%, nearly three-quarters of all public chargers, are concentrated in Greater London.
So if you live outside London, good luck.
Well, it certainly makes it harder. It creates these charging deserts in other parts of the country, which could really put people off buying an EV if they live there.
And there was another stat about rapid chargers versus the number of EVs.
Yeah, he says there's roughly only one rapid charger for every 81 EVs on UK roads.
One for every 81. That sounds like you might face a queue quite often.
It suggests the infrastructure rollout hasn't quite kept pace with EV sales, particularly for those crucial rapid chargers needed for quick top-ups. If you're an EV driver, that ratio is a bit concerning.
Yeah, you can see how range anxiety and charging anxiety are still real barriers for people.
Definitely.
Okay, another related area Dovydas looks at is solar power generation.
And again, he draws a comparison, particularly with Germany, which has been pretty proactive here.
So how does the UK stack up?
Oh, according to his figures, the UK generates significantly less solar power per person, about 252 watts.
Compared to Germany's?
816 watts per person. So quite a big difference there in terms of harnessing solar energy at a national level.
Is that just about the number of panels, or is it the technology too?
He touches on that as well. He suggests the average efficiency of consumer-level panels available in the UK is often lower, maybe 15–17%.
Whereas leading global tech is much higher.
Yeah, top-end panels can now reach efficiencies of 26%, even up to 47% in some cases. So potentially, UK consumers are getting less bang for their buck or less power per square meter of roof.
And he also mentioned home batteries, didn't he, for storing the solar power.
That's right. He points out that there aren't many strong incentives or grants in the UK specifically for installing home battery storage alongside solar panels.
Which is a shame because that's what lets you use your solar power in the evening, right? Makes you less reliant on the grid.
Exactly. It maximizes the benefit of having the panels in the first place.
So, okay, we've got declining production share, a productivity gap, really high energy costs, lagging EV infrastructure, and slower solar adoption. It paints a picture.
It does paint a challenging picture, and we are seeing the real-world consequences of some of these pressures.
Like the factory closures or changes?
Yes, he mentioned specific examples like the JLR plant at Castle Bromwich being repurposed and Stellantis changing what they make at their Luton van plant. These aren't small changes. They impact jobs and overall UK manufacturing capacity.
And wasn't there something about Jaguar stopping UK sales?
Yes, that's another indicator he mentions. Jaguar halting sales in its home market certainly speaks volumes about the current difficulties and the strategic decisions being made.
Right. It does sound quite tough. But, as you said earlier, the blog post doesn't just list the problems.
No, absolutely not. He dedicates a good portion to outlining potential opportunities, ways the UK industry could actually turn things around.
Okay, so what's the first big opportunity he sees?
Innovation and technology adoption. things like digital twins, advanced AI. He argues that properly leveraging these could slash EV production costs
By how much?
by up to 65%, he suggests.
65%. Wow, that would be transformative.
It would be a massive shift, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
It really highlights how crucial embracing that next wave of manufacturing tech is for competitiveness, especially in the EV space.
Okay, opportunity one, tech adoption. What's next?
Energy pricing and incentives. This links back to that major hurdle of high electricity costs.
So he's suggesting reforms.
Yeah, fundamentally reforming how energy is priced for industry. He talks about targeted industrial tariffs, maybe community solar credits, things to bring UK energy costs closer to those in competitor nations.
That sounds like a potential game changer for manufacturers if it could be achieved. Level the playing field on energy.
It would certainly remove a major disadvantage.
And the third big opportunity area.
This one's about building up what he calls innovation ecosystems right here in the UK. It's not just one thing, but several related ideas.
Okay, like what?
Well, establishing specialized smart factories focused on making specific high-value EV components. Creating an EV 4.0 consortium.
A consortium, like a big collaboration.
Exactly. Bringing together researchers, manufacturers, government, tech companies, all focused on accelerating EV development and deployment in the UK.
Interesting. What else?
He also talks about smaller-scale micro-factories or cell-factories. The idea here is maybe more agile, localized production, focusing on high-value or niche manufacturing.
Rather than just giant plants.
Potentially, yes. But he also highlights the need for the big stuff, too. Gigafactories for batteries, obviously crucial for EVs, and adopting advanced techniques like gigacasting.
Gigacasting. That's the Tesla thing, right? Making large car parts in one go.
That's the one. It can massively simplify production. So his vision for ecosystems includes both large-scale and more specialized, agile manufacturing working together.
Right. So just to pull those threads together from his analysis, we've got this stark drop in the UK's global production share, the ongoing productivity gap with places like the US, and these cripplingly high energy costs.
All happening while the rest of the world, especially China, is just racing ahead with EV sales and production. It's a really dynamic and, frankly, challenging global context.
So the way forward, according to the blog post, really needs a multi-pronged attack.
Definitely. It involves modernizing manufacturing with things like digital twins and AI, serious reform on energy pricing, a big push on expanding renewables, and getting that EV charging network built out properly across the whole country.
And deliberately fostering these local innovation hubs, these ecosystems, to drive progress.
Yeah. And Dovydas wraps up by saying, look, this situation isn't down to one single failure. It's a mix of things maybe underinvesting in the past, those energy cuts we keep mentioning, and the EV infrastructure not being quite ready nationwide.
And this is the crucial, but he stresses the UK isn't starting from zero. We have strengths.
Absolutely. A strong manufacturing heritage, even if it's shrunk, world-class universities and research, a really vibrant software and tech sector. These are valuable assets.
Things that we can build on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
His final message seems quite optimistic, actually. He believes that if the UK can effectively combine that Industry 4.0 tech with AI, really align its energy policy with its industrial goals, and properly nurture that local innovation,
Then we can actually shift from being a follower to potentially a leader in the next phase of automotive technology.
that's the potential he sees. A transformation towards next-gen automotive excellence.
So wrapping up this deep dive into Dovydas Mockevicius's insights, it's clear there are some serious headwinds for the UK auto sector. Production, productivity, energy infrastructure, lots of challenges.
But, importantly, there's also a path forward laid out, focused on innovation, policy reform, and building those collaborative ecosystems. His perspective, coming from that tech and auto background, really lends weight to the urgency of it all.
Which leaves us, and you, with a final thought to mull over. Considering that strength the UK has in software and tech, what kind of completely new business models, maybe going beyond just making cars, could the UK pioneer to find a competitive edge in the future of mobility?
Or flipping it around, given how big a barrier energy cost is. What innovative, perhaps very localized renewable energy solutions could be deployed in specific UK regions to really help revitalize automotive manufacturing there?
Some interesting questions to ponder. We really hope this deep dive has given you food for thought. Maybe check out the full blog post if you want to explore further. Thanks for joining us.